Hello, my name is Arthur. In the last video we'd made this UV map and we were going to go into Blender with it, and when I finished the video I realized the mistake I'd made when I exported this image, and it's a silly mistake. I forgot to turn off the map layer. So we're going to re-export that. This is the reason why we save our files, so that when we realize those mistakes, we still have the file available to fix it. So we'll just export that right over top. And I haven't even closed down my software yet, so hopefully people didn't get hung up on that mistake. Although going through this process a couple of times makes it much easier to do. Like, I can make these maps pretty easily now, particularly for a road set that's in this structure, the way that this is structured. So the next thing to do is to get our image into Blender. So we'll just go to the desktop. This is one of my other textures with darker colors. This one has much brighter colors, so it's kind of more of a fantasy kind of colors to it. So we'll just open this up. I believe that this needs to be done for the bump mapping to work right. Well, actually, this needs to be here for any of the texture mapping to work right, I think. So we'll open that there. We'll add in a texture. We'll just use the material that's already created, and we'll turn it into the texture we want it to be. So we'll change color to image texture. We'll load in the demo texture. In order to see that, we need to enable our light. So that's more or less what that looks like. We can exit this view now and see it from this view in object mode. It's pretty glossy, but we're not going to actually pay too much attention to that. People can perfect their materials as much as they want to perfect them, and this could just as easily be portrayed as something like oh, there looks like there's a modeling mistake here. Let's have a look at that. This could be portrayed something like a toy sort of scene. So having it a bit plastic would be normal. Yeah, this face shouldn't be up like that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select it and put it onto Z0. And it's in the proper location. There's a little modeling mistake somewhere in there. I pulled that up when I didn't intend to. Actually, I had to push it down because of the way I modeled it. I just forgot to do that. So we'll come into the shading tab and we're going to bump map that. So let's get where we can see. We'll add in a vector bump map. Color into height. Normal into normal. Or get that out of the way. That's some pretty extreme bump mapping there, so we can dial that back some. And this is all to people's taste, whatever you want. At this point, tweaking a material is up to people's taste. And, well, the bridge looks kind of funny, but, you know, what do you expect for a quick, just, oh, whatever pattern that I filled it with. I use a wood pattern that I have, or which is actually a photograph in other examples, but it gets across the idea of how to do the tile set and map it, which is really the point here, not how to do it perfectly. How much work people want to spend on it is kind of up to people. The same as this. This is, the texturing is a little bit extreme still, but we're actually just going to ignore that and carry on, because we don't want to spend time making things perfect. So we're going to go from edit mode and we're going to circle select our tiles one by one. So that's our cross intersection, P, separate selection. We would go through each of our tiles like this to separate the selection. We got to undo that because I accidentally had this one selected. So P, separate selection. We would make each of our tiles into their own object. So let's go into object mode and select this tile to look at the procedure. I'll typically use vertices. We can do this on this dialog as well. We can come into view. We can change the location of the 3D cursor. Let's see, that's minus 1.5 on X. So minus 1.5. Oops. That's the equals. That gets it centered there. Y is, I believe that's 0.5 or minus 0.5. I'm not sure. Oh, it's minus. So we'll get that to minus 0.5. Looking at the river from this angle, clearly it is far too textured and that bump map is too extreme for the river. There's different ways to solve that. It can be smoothed in color or just done separately. So we'll go back into object mode with the cursor centered on that tile. We'll set the origin to 3D cursor. Now this tile will rotate around itself. So let's take everything else and just get it out of the way. So we're going to assume that we've done that to all of the tiles, and we'll just look at how to render the image of a tile. So we'll Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift S, selection to cursor, 0 to look through the camera. Let's get the camera back in play here. We'll come up into our render engine. I like cycles, film, transparent. We need to be able to render a transparent background. 256 by 128. Sometimes if our river has enough depth, it's smart to just add in an extra 16 pixels. And it'll make not much difference. This is just going to be dead pixels at the bottom of our flat tile anyways. But because we want the camera set up to not have to be moved, having the extra pixels, if our river was modeled with a lot of depth to it, that it's going to need extra pixels at the bottom, the time to put those pixels in is right away. Now, I already know that it's not deep enough to require a lot of pixels, but we'll throw in the extra 16 pixels just for good measure. Okay, so that's our resolution. We don't need to worry about anything here. We'll just send this to the desktop. Saving and rendering images is not going to be very important here. So we're going to go in item for with the camera selected, and we're going to set it up for an isometric render. So we're going to put it 7 meters, minus 7 meters. We'll ignore Z, an X rotation of 60, a Z rotation of 45. We'll come into the camera settings, orthographic camera, orthographic zoom to zoom in. Now we'll use Z. Get to about center. Let's get out of shading view so we're not sluggish and unresponsive here. Minus zooms in. That's too close. We're looking for the outside edge of the tiles. The top edge lined up with the top edge, and we'll want a slight amount of overhang. But we want the slight amount of overhang to not come from Z. We want it to come from tweaking the zoom. So smaller numbers, zoom closer. So we'll go 1.413. Zoom in a little bit on that. Now at this point it's good to open up Godot, start a tile map, and do a test render. I'm going to look at that and I'm going to go, that's not going to work out. So we're going to try 2, 1. Let's just go right to 0 because I think it's around 410 should be right. So that's pretty close. We have some overhang on the edges, and at this point we can tweak Z. That's too much. So let's see, we're going down. So let's try that at 6, 0. Let's see where that, whoa, that went way up. Okay, 6, 6, 6, 8. That's too much. So we'll go 6, 6, 5. That's pretty close, but test renders are the best way to see that you have your camera lined up. This is the orthographic view, and I would advise considering your lighting carefully, because in the next video we're going to look at how we use this camera setup and this blend to put all of our assets in and to come up with a stable scale for all of our units. So I'll leave it at this. This is at a point where a person can start test rendering, tweaking the number on Z, tweaking the orthographic scale. We're going to have to enter numbers by text to get the camera centered quite just perfectly, but with a couple of tries it doesn't take much to get it centered well and to be in a position to render other assets for your game to scale. So until the next video, take care.